Hello friends, and welcome to Escaping the Mouse with your host, me, Breck Roll. Alright, I got a little something I want to work on with the pool. It's going to be a little troubleshooting issue. Let me show you what the issue is. You may recall a couple of weeks ago I had an issue where I flooded the backyard because this hose popped off the top of the pump, and basically the pump pumped all the water out of the pool. Well, not all the water, but about 6 inches of water out of the pool. And it ended up flooding this whole area here. And ever since then, I've been having problems getting the pump to work. I suspected initially that I drowned the pump somehow when by flooding it, and that ultimately I'd caused some damage to it. It turned out every time I'd turn on the pump, it would trip the breaker. Either the GFCI plug in there or the breaker in the garage. And I did that 3 or 4 times. It tripped the breaker almost immediately. And so I just said, okay, the pumps maybe can have to be written off, or we're gonna have to get another one. Well, I left it off, and I noticed that the breaker continued to trip periodically. And that seemed weird but not completely unexplainable, because if there is some water in there on the load side of the switch, it could short out and trip the breaker or the GFCI plug. Now, you'd think though, if there was a problem the second you plug it in, that it would trip. It wouldn't just randomly trip 24 hours, 36 hours later. So there's something weird going on there, but I wanted to still verify that it wasn't the something with the plug with the pump. So what I actually did is I just pulled the plug out of the outlet for the pump. So the pump is completely disconnected now from the electrical source. So no matter what the problem is, no matter how bad the problem may be in the pump, there's no way it's going to be able to affect the house electrical system. Well, I was wrong. I came out this morning and the breaker for this outlet was tripped again. Now I do have a couple of things plugged into it. I have this small pump over here that I've been using to kind of keep the water moving, but it appears to be working fine. And it's a new pump, so there shouldn't be any leaks in the system or anything like that. And once again, if it was a problem, it should trip immediately, not run like it is running right now. I also have the pool vac on that, but the pool vac isn't running very much, and it isn't even on right now because of the fact that when the power went out, it powers down this system too. So I don't know what's going on, but it makes me wonder if there is actually something going on with the pump. And so what I want to do today is experiment with that. I think the first thing I want to do is try powering the pump from another different location. If there is truly a problem with the pump and I turn it on, and it should trip the breaker for whatever outlet I put it on. Maybe there is something wrong with this. I'm not ruling out maybe the fact that the GFCI plug got wet in there, and that could be part of the problem, and it might be just tripping because of that. If that's the case, that's like a $20 fix at Home Depot, and we can go from there. Otherwise, like I said, I want to see if by plugging the pump into another outlet, if there's a problem with the pump, it should trip the breaker on that outlet. So that's the first thing I want to do today, and that shouldn't be too terribly difficult of a task. And in case you ever wondered what the fireflies do during the day, yeah, that's a firefly right there. He isn't lit up right now because he's not out there trying to attract a mate, but that's what they look like. Don't usually see them during the day. So you may recall when I created this big giant map of my house showing where all the outlets and all the sprinkler heads and stuff were. But this is kind of why I did this. Is now I can really trace down what's going on. This is the outlet right here that we're talking about. It's on breaker 22. That's the thing that keeps tripping when I have stuff plugged into that. And apparently it isn't even the pool pump that's entirely the problem. So I wanted to move it away from breaker 22. This is the garage here. And ultimately I've moved it over to this outlet here because this is the one that's going to have the least effect if I trip something. Because 26 It's going to be all the electrical outlets in the cat room. It's going to be most of the electrical outlets in the guest bedroom, but it's not going to hit the master bedroom. It's not going to hit the bath. It's not going to hit anything else in the house that might have things plugged into it. You know, I don't want to trip this one, for instance, because that's the one the computer's on. That's the one the entertainment system's on. So I don't want to hit any of those because that's not good when you power down there. But 26 is pretty isolated in the house. You know, we'll shut down the fan in the cat room. They'll be fine. The air conditioning continues to work. So what I've done is I've just run an extension cord from here all the way out here to this outlet, and I've plugged the pump into that. So now I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go turn on the pump out in the garage and see if anything happens to breaker 26. And there's the extension cord coming in to the pump. Let's see if we can turn the pump on now. What happens? Okay, nothing's happening. I can hear it trying to go. Sometimes this thing gets seized up a little bit and can have an issue. But let's see if we actually trip the breaker here. Alright, so this is the green extension cord here that comes in from the pump. And while I didn't actually trip the breaker, there's a little circuit breaker on this thing, and it tripped the circuit breaker on this thing. So we may still have a problem with the pump. So yeah, I do think that we have a problem with the pump. I may take the pump out and take it apart and see if I can see what's going on in there. But I suspect it maybe got some water in there and something got wet that shouldn't get wet. This whole thing is really designed, it seems, to be in an outdoor environment. I've taken this thing apart a couple times. It's not a pleasant thing to do. They definitely don't design this thing to be taken apart and serviced by the user. But I think I'm going to probably have to replace it, and we're going to have to budget for that for a little while. I was looking it up. They're about $600, and so I'm going to have to save a little bit for that. Hope that doesn't delay the start of swimming season. But hopefully between the chemicals and the pool vac and the fact that I have the little pump in there that's going in circles, keeping the water moving, hopefully we'll be able to not have this turn into a disaster. Still got to get in here with a vacuum a little bit. Yeah, that always just seems to happen. We always got leaves coming out, and unfortunately a lot of them end up sinking now because the skimmer isn't working. See, that's a big part of keeping everything clean, is keeping the skimmer going, because then when you got this stuff that's floating on the surface, it gets pulled into the skimmer rather than getting saturated with water and sinking to the bottom. So that just means the vacuum is going to have to work a little harder to kind of keep up with things. So there is definitely something wrong with the pump. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I think I'm going to have to go with my original plans to replace that. Not looking forward to that. I'm still not 100% certain that there's not something also wrong with that GFCI plug, and we may end up replacing that. One of the things I did notice is that there's two GFCI plugs right next to each other. And in California, I tried doing that once, where I had two GFCI plugs, one at the main source of the power and then another one inside the system. And I was told by the building inspector that you can't do that because sometimes they'll interact with each other and cause each other to trip. Now, I don't know if that's maybe just a guideline that exists in California, maybe that isn't as critical here, or maybe they've redesigned the GFCI plugs so that you can put two of them in an enclosure like that. I don't know, but I want to keep an eye on that for a while, and if it continues tripping when there's nothing on it, I may end up replacing those. It isn't generally the breaker, but I've heard of those GFCI plugs going bad, and the truth is it's very possible it got sprayed water when the pump malfunctioned, so that could also be part of it. So we're going to keep an eye on that. For now though, I think I want to take a trip over to the pool place and figure out what that new pump is going to cost, because the price I looked at was just on eBay, and you don't know if that's somebody gouging or seriously undermining what the cost is. But whatever the case is, I want to see what it is over at the Belmead pool place and get an idea how much I'm going to have to save up for this thing. So I decided I wanted to stop by here and see what was going on here. This is actually the corner of 5th Street and Washington, right out in front of the courthouse. They've been doing some road construction here for a while, and a couple days ago I saw somebody posted that they had found some old cobblestone underneath the road, and actually some looked like railroad lines, and they were speculating that this was an interesting part of Waco's history. In fact, you can kind of see some of the cobblestone there, and there was speculation that it might have been like some of the original, there was like a streetcar going through here. So check that out. Yeah, see, there's a piece of the streetcar right there. How awesome is that? Just buried right under the road here. Alright, so I'm back from the pool place. Right before I left, I actually made the decision to bring the old pump with me in case there was something they could do about it. And they plugged it in at the store, and it did the same thing it did here. It made all tripped the breaker, and it wouldn't start up. The guy said he thought that the motor itself was seized up, but he was going to take a look at it and see if he could unseize it for me. Other than that, if I have to buy a pump, they do have them there. Usually the particular model I want is out of stock, but they're going to have more in soon, and it is about what I expected it's going to be. It's going to be about $610. So that's a big chunk of cash, but you know, the beauty of that is if I replace the pump, then basically the pool is brand new, because everything has been replaced this year now except for the filter housing and the pool itself. So we got new sand in the pump, or in the filter, that's good. We got a new robot, that's good, and it sounds like we might end up having a new pump as well. So we're gonna do that. And as you saw, I also stopped by that location at 5th and Washington, where I'd seen that they were doing that construction, and actually picked up a couple of those stones, and I'll show you those in a minute, because those cobblestones, that's gonna be cool. You know, to have a piece of the original road from Waco right out in front of the courthouse. Also, one other thing I did, I've been seeing on my Facebook page recently that there's a rock and mineral shop that's opened up downtown, and I stopped in there, and they're just kind of a little family friendly place. A lot of cool stuff in there, and I actually got something there too, and I want to show you that. So when I was in there kind of browsing around there and talking to the owners, you know, they could see that I was kind of really interested in gemstones, and so they kind of gave me this little piece here. This is just a kind of an unremarkable piece of calcite, but it's kind of cool because it glows a little bit under the black light. You know, I don't know if you can really see it in the camera, but it's got kind of a greenish tint to it, which is kind of cool. And then I also actually picked up this piece here. And generally I don't go for shape pieces, and this is a piece that's been kind of polished into the shape of a pyramid. It's kind of a nice looking piece by itself, but the thing that really caught my attention is this is another one of those minerals that glows under a black light. Look at what that does. How awesome is that? That's just a bright orange color coming off of it. And I thought that was really cool. And I actually left the store not having picked up anything except just taking the piece of calcite they gave me. But I kept thinking about this when I got out to the car, and I said, that is just a really cool piece. I know I don't really like the shaped pieces, but I don't know, that was a really cool piece. So I actually ended up going back and buying that. And so, yeah, the rock collection continues here. I'm definitely going to have to build a display case now to hold all this stuff, because there's just going to be way too many cool things to do it. But it's really neat that they've got a shop like that in town. And in fact, they told me some of the stuff that they collect just comes literally down from Lake Waco. And I said, I've walked around Lake Waco a bunch of times and never seen anything really cool down there. And they said, yeah, you got to bring your black light down there and look at it at night. So I don't know, we may end up doing that sometime in the near future here, going out there some night, walking along the lake and seeing what we can see under a black light, because that might be really exciting. So in terms of the pump thing, like I said, I'm going to let them have it for a couple days, see what they can, if they can figure out what's going wrong and make it right again. Otherwise, I might have to buy a new pump, and I'm going to probably have to save for that a little bit, because, you know, $600, I don't necessarily have that sitting in my pocket somewhere. So, like I said, I think I can control the pool right now with chemistry and with the pool sweep. and that should keep it going. And we're getting very close now that the pool's of the temperature that I would want it to be in order to go into it. Last I looked, it was like 82, and I usually like to get it to about 86 before I'm really comfortable in there. And like I said, the pool seems to be doing all right at the moment without the filter in there, and so we'll just kind of play it by ear and see what happens. But looks like I'm maybe buying a new pool pump at some point here. So anyway, I think that's all that I have for today. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time on Escaping the Mouse. Good night.